Hi there, my name is CameronDomotor, and this is a short presentation I've put together on an environmental issue in Australia which affects the whole world. In this presentation, I'll introduce the issue, explain why it matters to all of us, and briefly present one interesting engineering solution. The issue we'll be looking at is the generation of electricity from fossil fuels. We won't have time to go deeper here, so let's take it as a prior that atmospheric carbon-14 is rising at an alarming rate. If we look at global emissions, Australia is ranked number 10 in the world for per capita carbon dioxide emissions at a staggering 15.37 metric tons. That's per person. At this level of output, we rank worse than the USA, UAE, Canada, and Russia, and we are more than double the per capita emissions of China. A report from CSIRO, the Australian government's own scientific research agency, points out that over a third of Australia's carbon emissions come from the burning of fossil fuels to generate electricity. Okay, so we're emitting lots of carbon. Let's have a look at why this matters. The greenhouse analogy has long been used to describe how certain gases in our atmosphere, such as carbon dioxide, trap heat much like inside a greenhouse. The United States Environmental Protection Agency explains how CO2 is currently the primary greenhouse gas contributing to climate change and global warming. The known issues arising from man-made climate change include rising air and sea temperatures, which among other things leads to melting polar ice and therefore rising sea levels, as well as the increase in regularity, severity, and unpredictability of extreme weather events all around the world. To consider just two of these effects as examples, we can see that rising sea levels are already endangering the homes of Pacific Nations people, and as one of the largest economies in the region, Australia has always had an important caretaker role to play in the Pacific. And just within Australia, we are seeing more regular and more extreme environmental events, such as massive bushfires, widespread flooding, destructive storms, and long droughts. The UN has publicly reported that on the current path, temperatures may rise nearly 4.5 degrees Celsius, and that our emissions must significantly reduce. So we're making too much of the wrong kind of carbon, and that's all bad. But let's have a look at what we can do about it. One promising solution is the use of solar-powered pumped hydro electric energy storage. Now that's a bit of a mouthful, but in its simplest form, pumped hydro consists of an upper and lower reservoir, usually connected via a large pipe or channel. Along this connection is a station which can use electricity to pump water into the upper reservoir, converting electrical energy into gravitational potential energy and storing it for later use. When energy is required, gravity is allowed to push water down into the lower reservoir, running the system in reverse to generate electricity. Considering the system as a whole, it can be likened to a very big, highly efficient battery. By combining pumped hydro with photovoltaic panels, the system can be charged during periods of peak sun, when there is often higher grid electricity surplus. When the sun goes away at night, the system can be discharged, converting potential energy back into electricity for the grid during periods when it is needed the most. The surface of the water in both reservoirs can serve as a wide flat area with a clear view of the sun, providing an excellent location for floating solar panels. One of many additional benefits here is the reduction in evaporative water volume losses, as the PV panels reduce the water's surface area. One good example of pumped hydro possibilities is the Kidston project, currently under construction in the northeast of Australia. which will become the third largest electricity storage device in the country when it is completed in 2024. Once operational, Kidston will have a 250 megawatt capacity, almost 3.5% more than the nearest fossil fuel power station. By utilising the co-located 270 megawatt solar project, Kidston will effectively have zero carbon emissions by comparison to fossil technology. So to wrap up, we can see that Australia has an important role to play with responsibilities on global, regional, and domestic scales with regard to the reduction of greenhouse emissions. And replacing our coal-fired power stations with solar-powered pump hydro would go a long way in reducing these emissions. Thanks for watching my short presentation on the generation of electricity